Today's story was written by Reddit user Ice the Writer. They were always benevolent. It must be at least 24 generations since we first met them. The giants that soared across our sky in ships rivaled our planet's width. Nearly 20 times our size, with technology eons past ours. They never demanded anything, and even once had one of their ambassadors shrunk to meet us on our own turf. During the first meeting, if records are to be trusted, much can be embellished or romanticised in the span of 24 generations. They had shrunk one of their own, knowing it would diminish their ambassador's exorbitant long life so that we would feel comfortable. I've been told the story at least 100 times, for my forebearer had this meeting. They never asked anything of us. They taught us how their machinations worked, and even helped and asked us to create items for them. They held nothing back, and never interfered in our lives, politics, wars, or the like. They are, as they're often referred to cheerfully, our protectors. Only in times of great distress, or in fear of the total devastation of our society and planet, do they interfere. Not to project us on a path, but to guide us through other means. I had become the emissary of our generation. I was to hold our next meeting. Done once every generation. This was only their third ambassador in all this time. The ancient one looked old and frail. He had been the governing hand from our opposites for the last 7 generations, and his age was showing. It felt weird, almost wrong, that he of such a noble race and being should fall into the same crushing currents of time as we. But that is the way of the universe. The 23rd meeting as of welcome, Ambassador Kiali Briannon, our races adjourn. The ancient's communicator was a bit off. Between the times of our few and seldom meetings, slang, dialects, and language quickly changed. They often used an archaic root of our language, but we understood what they meant. It would probably, in a correct sense, sound like Ambassador Kiali Briannon, welcome to the 23rd meeting between our two races. But that matters not. We were on the cusp of our space travel, and even though they had presided over our existence for so long, they kept some technology for themselves, not out of spite, but out of care. A race that shoots to the stars without first being united will find themselves hungering for supremacy over their own, was a sentence my Gramps often said when I wished for adventures among the stars. They never frowned, stopped, or halted our progress. The benevolent ancients meddled not unless mutually assured destruction was in play. But I digress. Oh, ancient Xia Zhao, we've not had a single dispute in this generation. With the automation and installment of a flat distribution of wealth controlled by the Central Planetary Commission, we've united under one flag, one purpose, one goal. To seek the stars. I continued in a revered manner for the old ancient. His smile alone could hold 3 of us in it comfortably. As terrifying as that thought was, I knew the ancients to be a centre of peace. I awaited his response, afraid he might not understand the lines of communication often askewed.
Aft, are we glad? Yet purpose lies before you. A building block a generation is. A triple, a foundation and truth lie.
Xia Zhao answered in his deep, ringing voice. The folds of his face betrayed that this might be the last of his visits with us. Again, the sentence was off, but it could be understood better.
That you have found a true purpose and meaning between your people is a great endeavour that gladdens us, yet one generation can change for the next. Once you have found it in yourselves to build on it for several generations and find singular purpose, as you have now, you will find your true path. I never thought I'd be as glad to study linguistics as I had as of now. The mind was allowed greater space for interpretation back then. I looked at the great ancient one. I could not help myself, and asked the question that had been stuck in my mind. It was so exceedingly rare that one of them should fall, that their lives should end. I asked the most undignified question, but I knew I only had a few years left myself, and felt a sudden need to relate myself to it. The ancient giant. "Oh, ancient one, may I be so bold to ask, is this your last meeting?" I felt the quiver of my very bones, the dread and sullying of my purpose at this meeting for something so personal. But I was resolute. I showed not one emotion on the outside as I awaited an answer. "Yes, my last meeting this is. I have my final meeting in yet 2 years." The ancient one smiled. I knew not whether to shake, smile, cry, or curse the universe for this travesty. But I knew better. I had but 2, maybe 3 years myself. He had honoured me in this way, revealing his own time of death to a being with 1/9 of his length of life. At least 2 of my forebearers had been ambassadors before me. Both had met with him in his youth, 2 and 5 generations ago. I felt compelled to ask, "Do you, O ancient one, Xie Zhao, remember my forebearers? We kept our name in reverence for our first generational meeting with you." "Birds of a feather flock together. Looks and honour travel all the same." The ancient one smiled again, somewhat more fatigued than before, but I knew his meaning. "Your family tend to pursue or fold into the same interests, and you and your forebearers look very much the same to me." It filled my heart with renown, an acknowledgement I had never thought I wanted to hear, nor needed. I pursued my quest for that which my heart ached for, and asked again, "O ancient one, Xie Zhao, you have held your hands over my people and family for 8 generations now. Might I be so bold as to accompany you on your last day, for mine is sure to follow soon?" He pondered quietly for a minute and turned his head to the side of the screen so that His Majesty, in all its splendour, looked even more royally than usual. A few seconds passed, and he asked, "My time?" A crude way of asking how long I had left. I quickly answered, "I have an estimated time of 2.5 years. He looked again to the side and nodded twice, with what seemed like an eternity in between, until his words finally rang again. "Kiali Briannan, generation of 7th. For my final meeting, you are welcome. As I laid eyes on yours, you may lay eyes on me." I dared not look at the ancient. Never before had one of us witnessed their death or ceremony. I was to become the first of our kind to witness such an event, and I had to think thrice before I knew exactly what he meant. With all honours included, it would sound like, "Honoured Ambassador Kiali Briannan, I would be honoured if you would be with me at my last, as I could be with your last. I will extend a formal and full invitation so you might be here with me and preside over my death, as I have watched over those of your kin." As we concluded the meeting, I went back to my planet, assisted by their far superior technology for a safe landing with our crude chemical rocket engines, still in awe over the request that I made and the progress between bridging a gap between our cultures, but also lifting our species beyond our own selfish views. This was to be the greatest sociological breakthrough of at least 25 generations. As the time passed, I waited eagerly for the unusual contact from the ancients. I was feeling the wear of time, closing my limbs down, and was now secured to a chair. My feeble extremities no longer capable of supporting their own weight.
Much debate happened as I watched the next two generations struggle and thrive, to grow and expect. My meeting with Xie Zhao had inspired our people far beyond our own trifles ever had. That the ancients saw us as worthy to witness the death of one of their own had brought our people together as never before. I could not do much of anything when the call finally came. My own doctors were astounded I had kept such a hard grip on life, but I knew I could not leave before I witnessed this, for I wanted to mourn. I wanted to share in the end of life of the benevolent ancients, as they had cared for us, to see their rights, to truly see their culture, for if they care so deeply for all things living, what wonders do they hold for their dead? A new ancient one was the face of the holographic cult. It held some resemblance to the previous one, yet the colour was not the same. It resembled the second one more, Xie Zhao being the third ancient one. Kiali Brianan, Ambassador earlier still. The final meeting of Xie Zhao is here. It was transmitted across the entire planet. It was the anticipation of the generation, seen as a pillar of the success of our race, to be acknowledged in such a manner. The translation came as well. Former Ambassador Kiali Brianan, you are invited to be a part of the last moments and funeral rites of Xie Zhao. It, of course, was meant as a private message, but the whole thing had blown past that of politics and had become a singular point of our species' growth as a sociologically coherent society. I had no wish for all the drama and extravaganza. I felt only I was to say goodbye to a friend not known, a friend always loved, and a friend whom cared for my family. I was transported to the indescribably large ship. I, myself, only measured a 15th of the length of the door opening. I was placed in a specifically constructed bowl before I got onto the ship, so that I would not be crushed under the artificial gravity on board the ship. I felt death creeping nearer for every moment I came closer to the ceremony, for myself, for the Ancient One, and for my view of the universe. For all my life, I had been bound to our planet. Never had I seen such strange machines as in the hour and a half it took us to get from the entry port to the ceremony area. And never had I seen or ever believed there could be so many Ancient Ones. Even after moving in a straight line for this length of time, the guides, from what I could understand, said we were still on the very western side of the ship from which I entered. It blew my mind just how wide the ship must have been across. I noticed in the middle of the large room, at least our planet in size from top to bottom, the Ancient One laid in the middle on a truly massive, ornate stone slab. He looked oddly comfortable. I hovered up beside him through energies and technology that seemed like our wildest science fiction. I looked at him, and he looked at me. This was the first time our races had seen eye to eye for 24 of my generations. He saw how frail I was, and I him. We felt confident in our place beside each other that transcended politics and the sheer diversity of our size and place. He gave me that odd, comforting smile and said quietly a few words. I'm not quite sure I got it right, but I felt it nonetheless. I see you are as stubborn as I, holding on to the very last for tasks undone. With that, he drew his last breath. The Ancient One was no more. Even though there were hundreds of the ancients there, they did not fill the room as he did. As my little bubble recorded the proceedings, I listened carefully. I will avoid the obscure language translators and repeat it as I have done the translation. So draws the last breath of Xie Zhao, one of our greatest diplomats, one of the truly enigmatic charming, and scientifically prolific people of our time. His contributions to the human race will live on forever. The second person of his family line to work as ambassadors, whom discovered and helped the Armorinian race achieve a connection to the greater universe and ourselves. The former ambassador, Kiali Brianan, is here today to witness the death of Jia. After his service as their ambassador for nearly 90 years. This is a historic moment, not only for us, but for the Amorinians as well. In this final moment, we give the last word of honour to you, Kiali Brianan. As I sat in the little chair in the machinery that flew on its own without the feeling of inertia, the bubble didn't impede my speech in any way. I felt an immense awe at experiencing the death of the ancient human, for we barely lived 12 of their years, yet they normally lived 120 of them. But I knew, I felt in my heart what I needed to say. For untold generations, you, mankind, have stood over us, never interfering, ever benevolent. You have never asked anything unbecoming of us. Why? Why have you not? You have had every opportunity. You are so far beyond us in every aspect that matters. But I knew the first time I met ancient Jia Zhao that his smile, his gesture and being, it was one of warmth and love, one that didn't need to be repaid, one that was not demanding, one that was only shown when you watch your children grow to be good. For that, I thank Zhao. For that, I thank humanity. You have given us thoughts, love and care out of selflessness, and for that, we will strive to be your equals.